A cowboy paid $5 for his Stetson. John B. Stetson paid 8 cents to make it. Between 1865 and 1906, that margin built a $7 million fortune and created the world's largest hat factory. By 1906, the Stetson Company produced 2 million hats annually. At an average retail price of $10 and a manufacturing cost under 50 cents, each hat generated $9.50 in gross profit. 2 million hats times $9.50 equals $19 million in annual gross revenue. Stetson captured approximately 35% after labor and overhead. That's $6.6 million per year flowing to Philadelphia from ranches, mining camps, and railroad towns across the West. Cowboys bought Stetsons thinking they were purchasing quality. They were actually funding an industrial empire built on the hat-making equivalent of printing money. The iconic symbol of Western independence was manufactured in urban Philadelphia by immigrant labor operating steam-powered machinery. The cowboy hat had nothing to do with cowboys and everything to do with industrial-scale margin exploitation. May 5, 1830. John Batterson Stetson was born in Orange, New Jersey, the 7th of 12 children. His father, Stephen Stetson, owned a hat-making business. Young John learned the trade working alongside his father, selecting furs, operating felting equipment, shaping crowns, trimming brims. By age 25, Stetson had mastered every aspect of hat production. Then tuberculosis struck. In 1858, doctors diagnosed consumption and predicted death within months. The disease ravaged the lungs slowly, causing victims to waste away, hence consumption. Stetson decided to spend his remaining time exploring the American West before he died. He moved to St. Joseph, Missouri in 1859. Instead of dying, he got a job at a brickyard. Within 2 years, Stetson became manager and then part owner. He demonstrated business acumen and leadership. Then a flood destroyed the facility in 1861. Stetson lost everything. He joined a party heading to Pikes Peak in Colorado to prospect for gold. He spent the next 3 years in Colorado, working claims and observing Western life. The high altitude and dry climate improved his health. His tuberculosis symptoms subsided. Stetson would live another 43 years. During a Colorado rainstorm in 1863, Stetson demonstrated his hat-making skills to fellow prospectors. He collected fur from rabbit and beaver pelts, shaved the fur from the hides, agitated it with a makeshift bow to create a cloud of fibers, sprayed water through the suspended fur to create a mat, then felted it by repeated dipping in boiling water. The process created waterproof fabric from raw fur without tanning hides. Stetson fashioned a wide-brimmed, high-crowned hat for himself. His companions mocked the unusual design. Then a bullwhacker, a freight wagon driver, rode up, examined the hat, tried it on, and offered Stetson $5 in gold for it. Stetson sold it immediately. That transaction planted the seed for his business plan. Working cowboys needed better hats. The coonskin caps, wool derbies, and straw hats, commonly worn in the West, were impractical. They didn't shed water, protect from sun, or withstand rough use. Cowboys would pay premium prices for durable, functional headwear designed for their work, and Stetson knew exactly how to manufacture it. In 1865, Stetson returned to Philadelphia with $100 in capital. Some accounts say $60 borrowed from his sister Louisa. Either way, he started small. Stetson rented a one-room workshop at 7th and Callow Hill Streets. He hired 2 workers. He purchased hat-making tools and fur. Initially, Stetson tried producing fashionable Eastern-style hats for the Philadelphia market. He attempted to compete on design, curling brims, shaping crowns to match current trends. He failed. The Philadelphia hat market was saturated with established manufacturers producing similar products. Profit margins were thin. Stetson couldn't differentiate or scale profitably. His early hats retailed for $2. After materials and labor costs, Stetson netted perhaps 25 cents per hat. He struggled to pay for weekly fur shipments. One week he couldn't afford to pay for his fur delivery. The supplier extended credit without being asked. Stetson, a devout Baptist, interpreted this as divine intervention. He decided to abandon the crowded Eastern market and focus on the underserved West. Stetson created the Boss of the Plains. In 1865, the design featured a 4-inch flat brim, 4-inch straight crown with rounded corners, and natural tan color. The hat was made from fur felt, primarily rabbit with some beaver for higher-end versions. The felting process created waterproof, durable fabric that held shape. The wide brim provided sun protection. The high crown trapped an insulating air pocket. Cowboys could use the crown to water horses and the brim as a drinking cup. They could fan fires, signal across distances, and knock men down in fights. One celebrated incident involved a Stetson that maintained its shape after being hit by 20 bullets. The Boss of the Plains wasn't just a hat. It was equipment. Stetson understood this distinction. He marketed utility, not fashion. Stetson's distribution strategy was genius. He manufactured sample hats and mailed one to every hat dealer and general store in the Southwest. Each shipment included a letter requesting an order for 1 dozen Boss of the Plains hats. The samples demonstrated quality. Merchants could examine construction, test waterproofing, and assess durability before ordering inventory. Within months, Stetson was inundated with orders. Demand exceeded supply immediately. By 1866, Stetson moved to a larger facility. He hired additional workers and increased production capacity. The initial $5 retail price positioned the Boss of the Plains as a premium product. Average cowboys earned $30 to $40 per month. A Stetson cost nearly 2 weeks' wages. But cowboys bought them anyway because cheaper hats failed quickly. A $2 wool derby lasted maybe 6 months. A $5 Stetson lasted 5 years. The economics favored quality. Now the numbers that built the fortune. In 1920, after Stetson's death, a promotional film titled Birth of a Hat documented the manufacturing process. The film revealed that the Philadelphia plant processed 16 million animal pelts annually. Production required 7.5 to 8.5 ounces of fur per hat. At peak production of 3.3 million hats per year by 1915, that's approximately 24 million ounces of fur consumed annually. Fur costs varied by animal. Rabbit fur, the most common, cost approximately 1 to 2 cents per ounce in bulk quantities in the 1880s and 1890s. Beaver cost 6 to 8 cents per ounce. Nutria cost 3 to 4 cents. For a standard rabbit felt Boss of the Plains using 8 ounces of fur at 2 cents per ounce, materials cost 16 cents. Add a leather sweatband at 3 cents, hatband ribbon at 2 cents, and packaging at 1 cent. Total materials cost 22 cents. Labor costs required more analysis. The 1920 promotional film showed that approximately 100 workers touched each hat during manufacturing. But those touches totaled perhaps 2 hours of aggregate labor per hat, when accounting for the mechanization and assembly line efficiency. Hat-making wages in Philadelphia in the 1890s ranged from $1.50 to $300 per day for skilled workers. Apprentices earned less. Stetson paid above market wages to retain workers. Average wage, $2 per day. At 10 hours per day, that's 20 cents per hour. 2 hours of labor per hat at 20 cents per hour. 40 cents in direct labor costs. But Stetson's mechanization reduced labor requirements. His factory utilized steam-powered felting machines, hydraulic blocking presses, and automated shaping equipment. These machines allowed one worker to produce more hats per day than traditional hand methods. Stetson's factories achieved labor efficiency that reduced per-unit cost to approximately 25 cents by the 1890s. Add materials at 22 cents, plus labor at 25 cents, plus factory overhead, utilities, and equipment depreciation at approximately 13 cents. Total manufacturing cost per boss of the plains hat, 60 cents. The boss of the plains retailed for $5 in 1865, $8 by 1880, and $10 by 1900. Premium Stetson models with higher beaver content retailed for $20 by the 1890s. Take the standard $10 Stetson hat by 1900. Manufacturing cost, 60 cents. Wholesale price to retailers, $4.50. Retail price, $10. Stetson's gross profit, $3.90 per hat. Retailers' gross profit, $5.50 per hat. After accounting for overhead, administrative costs, and distribution expenses, Stetson netted approximately $2.80 per hat. At 2 million hats annually by 1906, that's $5.6 million in annual net profit. The title's claim of 8 cents manufacturing cost represents the material's cost for the cheapest possible rabbit felt hat, perhaps 6 ounces of low-grade rabbit fur at 1.3 cents per ounce plus minimal finishing. That configuration existed primarily for the lowest-priced straw and wool hats Stetson also manufactured. The boss of the plains cost more to produce, but the margin was still obscene. Even at 60 cents manufacturing cost and $5 retail, the markup was 733%. Retail markups on clothing typically ran 100 to 200%. Stetson achieved 700+% because he controlled a brand that signified identity. Cowboys weren't buying hats. They were buying membership in the culture of the West. The scale amplified everything. By 1872, Stetson opened to the massive factory complex at 4th Street and Montgomery Avenue in Philadelphia. The facility eventually grew to 25 buildings covering 9 acres. Total factory floor space, 32 acres. At peak capacity by 1915, the factory employed 5,400 workers, producing 3.3 million hats annually. The mechanization was extraordinary for its era. Stetson adopted steam-powered felting machines in the 1870s, decades before most competitors. He installed hydraulic presses for blocking hat crowns. He implemented conveyor systems to move hats between workstations. The factory operated with assembly line precision years before Henry Ford popularized the concept in automobile manufacturing. Stetson's production innovations made the Philadelphia plant the most efficient hat factory in the world. Competitors couldn't match his combination of quality and cost structure. Stetson reinvested profits into vertical integration. He didn't just manufacture hats, he controlled the entire supply chain. The Philadelphia complex included fur warehouses where pelts were sorted, cleaned, and stored. It included dyeing facilities, felt-making equipment, blocking stations, finishing departments, and even a box-making operation. Stetson manufactured his own distinctive hat boxes. Everything from raw pelts to boxed, finished hats happened within the 9-acre complex. This vertical integration eliminated middlemen and maximized margins. Stetson paid wholesale prices for raw furs and sold finished products at retail-supported prices. He captured value at every step. The marketing was equally sophisticated. Stetson displayed hats at major expositions, the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition, the 1879 Paris Exposition, the 1889 Paris Exposition, and the 1900 Paris Exposition. The hats won awards. Stetson used these honors in advertising. He employed traveling salesmen beginning in 1869, a novel approach that created personal relationships with retailers across the country. The salesmen carried sample hats, took custom orders, and educated merchants about product features. Stetson invested in print advertising in Western newspapers and magazines. The advertisements featured testimonials from cowboys, ranchers, and Western celebrities. Buffalo Bill Cody wore Stetsons. Calamity Jane wore Stetsons. Will Rogers wore Stetsons. Annie Oakley wore Stetsons. The Texas Rangers adopted Stetson as their official hat in the 1880s, creating an enduring association between the brand and law enforcement. Every public appearance by these figures was free advertising. The brand became synonymous with cowboy hat by the 1890s. Western writers used Stetson interchangeably with hat in their novels. The editor of Munsey's magazine noted in the 1920s that authors used Stetson the way they used Colt, as shorthand for the generic product. Clarence Mulford, author of the Hopalong Cassidy novels, stated that regardless of what word he typed, he visualized a Stetson. Caroline Lockhart wrote that "My cowboys and cowgirls all wear Stetsons." The brand had achieved something rare in consumer products. It became the category definition. Stetson didn't just sell cowboy hats. Stetson was the cowboy hat. The labor strategy deserves attention because it was unusually progressive for the era and cynically effective at preventing unionization. Stetson, guided by Baptist principles, implemented worker benefits decades before they became standard. He provided profit-sharing bonuses, Christmas bonuses that increased with tenure, pension plans, and life insurance. He established the Stetson Building Association, which provided below-market loans to help workers buy homes. Over 1,000 employees purchased homes through the program. Stetson built a company hospital staffed with doctors and nurses. The hospital treated employees and their families for $1 per quarter. Those unable to pay received free care. The factory complex included a library, dental office, auditorium, athletic fields, and a school. Over 2,000 children of employees attended Sunday school or kindergarten on company grounds. The factory buildings had automatic sprinkler systems, fire extinguishers on every floor, and modern ventilation. Stetson provided clean, safe working conditions far superior to typical manufacturing facilities. These benefits weren't altruism. They were strategic. Hat-making traditionally involved itinerant labor. Skilled workers who drifted from employer to employer, working seasonal gigs. Absenteeism was rampant. Stetson needed year-round, reliable labor to maintain production efficiency. The benefits program incentivized workers to stay. The Christmas bonuses increased annually, punishing job hopping. The home loans created financial ties to Philadelphia. The hospital and school provided family services that kept entire households anchored to the Stetson factory. The strategy worked. Stetson maintained unusually high worker retention. Many employees worked their entire careers at the factory. The benefits also discouraged unionization. Why strike when the employer provides better conditions than unions could negotiate? Stetson was openly anti-union. His paternalistic benefit system was designed to make unions unnecessary and unwanted. Labor tensions eventually emerged anyway. In the 1930s, management introduced time motion studies and efficiency metrics to reduce costs during the Depression. Workers resented the increased scrutiny and paced demands. In 1936, Stetson employees unionized and struck. They won union recognition, a 40-hour work week, and elimination of the time studies, but by then, John B. Stetson had been dead 30 years. His paternalistic system had kept unions out for 7 decades, an extraordinary achievement in industrial America. The empire's geography mattered. Stetson manufactured an icon of Western identity in urban Philadelphia. The factory employed primarily European immigrants, Italian, Polish, Irish, German workers operating machinery to produce hats for cowboys they'd never met in landscapes they'd never seen. The disconnect was jarring. The symbol of rugged individualism and frontier independence was mass-produced by assembly line labor in the industrial Northeast. Cowboys bought Stetsons thinking they were embracing authentic Western culture. They were buying manufactured nostalgia created by Eastern industrialists who'd never roped a steer. The boss of the plains wasn't born on the range. It was born in a Colorado rainstorm and perfected in a Philadelphia factory complex. Stetson's personal wealth accumulated rapidly. He owned the company outright. No partners, no shareholders, no dilution. Every dollar of profit was his. By 1880, Stetson was producing approximately 500,000 hats annually. At $3 net profit per hat, that's $1.5 million annually. By 1890, production reached 1 million hats at $3.50 profit each, $3.5 million annually. By 1900, production hit 1.8 million hats at $3 profit, $5.4 million annually. By 1906, production reached 2 million hats at $2.80 profit, $5.6 million annually. Stetson accumulated this wealth over 40 years. He also spent extensively on philanthropy. He donated to Temple University and Stetson University in Florida, which was renamed in his honor after major contributions. He funded the Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission, a homeless shelter and soup kitchen in Philadelphia. He built a school and hospital in DeLand, Florida. He owned an 8,000-square-foot mansion in DeLand featuring Gothic, Tudor, and Moorish architectural elements. At his death on February 18, 1906, Stetson's estate was valued at $7 million. In 2025 dollars, that's approximately $230 million. Not Rockefeller money, but substantial regional wealth. His son, George Henry Stetson, took control of the company. Production continued growing. By 1915, the factory employed 5,400 workers and produced 3.3 million hats annually. The company remained profitable through the 1920s. Then, fashion changed. Men stopped wearing hats as standard attire. President John F. Kennedy appeared hatless at his 1961 inauguration, accelerating the trend. Hat sales collapsed industry-wide. Stetson survived longer than most competitors because Western hats retained utility and cultural significance even as dress hats disappeared. But profitability declined. The Philadelphia factory closed in 1971. The Stetson brand survived through licensing arrangements. The hats are still manufactured today in Texas by Hatco Inc., producing approximately 1 million hats annually. The brand endures. The fortune is gone, dispersed through heirs and philanthropy. The economics told a clear story. A product costing 60 cents to manufacture retailed for $10. That margin, multiplied by millions of units annually, built institutional wealth. Stetson wasn't selling hats. He was selling identity and status. Cowboys invested 2 weeks' wages to signal membership in Western culture. They believed the Stetson marked them as authentic. The reality, they were customers in a brilliantly executed branding scheme. The Stetson became synonymous with cowboy culture precisely because John B. Stetson invested in marketing, quality control, and distribution that made his hats ubiquitous. He created the association through industrial efficiency and brand management, not frontier authenticity. The lesson extended beyond hats. Every resource boom or cultural movement creates opportunities for manufacturers who supply the participants. Gold rush prospectors made merchants rich. Cowboys made Stetson rich. The pattern repeated across American industrialization. Levi Strauss sold denim pants to miners. Colt sold revolvers to settlers. Winchester sold rifles to hunters. These manufacturers understood that participants in cultural movements need equipment, and equipment manufacturers who control quality and distribution capture the value. Stetson applied this principle perfectly. He identified an underserved market, Western workers, and created a product optimized for their needs. He invested in manufacturing efficiency to achieve cost advantages. He built a brand through marketing and celebrity endorsements. He maintained quality to justify premium pricing. He scaled production to maximize volume. The result was $7 million in personal wealth extracted from cowboys who paid $5 for a hat that cost 60 cents to make. The factory complex stood as a testament to scale and integration. 9 acres of buildings, 32 acres of floor space, 400 workers, 3.3 million hats annually, 16 million animal pelts processed each year, steam-powered machinery, hydraulic presses, conveyor systems, on-site hospital, company housing. It was an industrial marvel disguised as a hat factory. The boss of the planes that cowboys wore on cattle drives began as rabbit pelts sorted in a Philadelphia warehouse, processed by immigrant labor operating mechanized equipment, blocked on steam-heated forms, shaped by skilled finishers, packaged in custom boxes, and shipped by railroad to Western retailers. The hat's journey from pelt to product involved hundreds of workers and dozens of mechanical processes. The cowboy who purchased it saw only the finished product and the Stetson name embossed in gold on the sweatband. Cowboys never knew the numbers. They never calculated the margin between manufacturing cost and retail price. They never questioned why a Philadelphia factory produced Western hats. They never wondered how Stetson achieved such market dominance. They simply knew that a Stetson was the right hat for their work, and they saved their wages to buy one. That's the genius of effective branding. Create a product that signals identity. Associate it with aspirational figures. Maintain quality that justifies price. Then let the market work. Cowboys marketed Stetson hats to each other simply by wearing them. Every Stetson on a working cowboy's head was free advertising to other cowboys. The hats sold themselves through social proof and cultural association. By 1906, when Stetson died, his company dominated the Western hat market with near monopoly control. Competitors existed but couldn't challenge Stetson's combination of quality, brand recognition, distribution network, and manufacturing efficiency. The name Stetson had become generic for cowboy hat. That brand value, built over 40 years of consistent quality and aggressive marketing, was worth millions independent of physical assets. The Philadelphia factory could burn down, the brand would survive. Which it did, eventually. The factory closed in 1971. The brand continued because Stetson had created cultural currency that transcended manufacturing. The hat wasn't just equipment, it was identity. The final arithmetic was stark. Materials, 22 cents. Labor, 25 cents. Overhead, 13 cents. Total cost, 60 cents. Retail price, $10. Gross margin, 94%. Annual production by 1906, 2 million hats. Annual revenue, $20 million. Net profit, $5.6 million. Personal fortune accumulated, $7 million. The numbers built an empire from felt and fur. John B. Stetson created the cowboy hat in a Colorado rainstorm. Then he built a Philadelphia factory to manufacture it at scale. He invested in quality, marketing, and distribution. He captured the Western market and held it for 4 decades. Cowboys thought they were buying authentic frontier equipment. They were funding an industrial operation that understood margin economics better than any ranch foreman understood cattle. The hat that defined the West was created by Eastern manufacturing genius and sold at prices that made Philadelphia millionaires. Cowboys wore the symbol. Stetson kept the profit.